good to be here with you for the ultimate Boise sports show. Mr. Tom Scott, famous Tom Scott.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jordan Smith.
Welcome back. How are you?
It's good to be here.
It is wonderful to have you. I was glad he showed up into the studio. I'm like, I don't know if we're going to have time to tape today. And he says, no, we're doing this. Let's talk some football. So
I said that?
I said, I'm like, I don't know if we got time. And he said, we'll make some time.
Yeah.
We'll talk some BSU football.
Okay.
There's a lot to discuss, including the second scrimmage of this fall camp just wrapped up. And it seems like we're learning a little bit more about these position battles, particularly when it comes to the QB position. And then, of course, wide receivers, it seems like we're starting to see where Sean Jones emerges, obviously wide receiver one, probably alongside Cam Bates. And, gosh, I mean, they've got Nitro.
Right,
yep.
yeah, right.
What are you seeing so far?
Well, I think the wide receiver room, I think, is coming together. I think rather than identifying an alpha wide receiver, they need to identify three guys, the three main characters. And Boise State hasn't had a trio like that in a long time, and it looks like they have one now. Yeah,
it seems like last year there was just that disappointment following Chris Marshall. You know, five-star guy comes in from the SEC. He just didn't quite pan out with the offense. I don't know if it was a culture fit or maybe the offensive scheme wasn't right for him, but it just, I think that excitement fizzled out. We're starting to feel that again with Rashawn Jones, though. He's just lighting it up in fall camp.
Yeah, and he's a local guy, and he really wants to be here, obviously. I think Chris Marshall, you know, he came in with so much baggage 2 years ago, and he never really shed the baggage. And it got worse last year with the drops.
Yeah.
He made some incredible catches, but he had some egregious drops during the season. And there may have been some disruptive force in the locker room at work there too.
Yeah.
So he's at Arkansas, and I think the wide receiver room is probably better off for it.
Yeah, back-to-back Mountain West championships for this team. Even though they left on top of the mountain, it just felt like a year to kind of just, you know, wash your hands of a little bit. It just had a weird vibe to the whole season. You kind of saw players quitting a little bit on the team and the effort not really there. That was a big emphasis from Nate Potter. We heard him say, you know, we've got to be able to carry ourselves, especially when things get tough. We throw an interception, we're down a couple of scores. And it feels like that's been a massive priority for this team, is shifting that culture to be one of unity, and they're constantly measuring effort. I don't know what you've heard so far, or what you make of that.
Well, I think that's an excellent point, because it started with the South Florida game last year. There were some lack of effort instances in that game, and that carried over throughout the season. And then November happened.
Yeah.
You know, the 1st of November, and Fresno State comes to town. And Boise State loses Maddox Manson very early in that game, and they were not ready to handle that. And Fresno State took it to them, and that was just a shock, what happened that day. On a beautiful day on the blue turf, I might add. And then the San Diego State game with the rain and the baffling game plan to answer the rain that never really allowed Max Cutforth to have a chance. And then the rally from there.
Yeah, and then, of course, kind of that disappointing, that sour note that they finished on against Washington to close out the season. You know, and one, I think that you can put a nice asterisk next to that. I don't think that you can really effectively measure. You know, I don't think that performance was indicative of the team that whole season, but it did definitely just cap off like, you know what, let's just be done with it. But it did kind of create this different, this mentality shift heading into the offseason. We heard from Spencer Danielson after this most recent scrimmage talking about effort and how that's different heading into the 2026 campaign. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Did you play hard for 4 to 6 seconds? And that's why even in practice, when the whistle blows, there's a flag that goes up. So even on film, we know exactly when that play is over. There's no gray area. Did you play 4 to 6 seconds of violence? From the receiver to the nose guard. And it's charting. I go through every position the team needs. The only thing I chart, linebackers, not good enough. Have to improve, too low, next guy. And I go through the whole roster every single day. And it is really cool to see our guys continue to grow that. Now, there's a lot of greens up there. To start, it was a little hit or miss, but our team's playing really, really hard. It's 4 to 6 seconds of bounce. So even if it's not just running, right? If I turn down a hit, if I don't finish a block, if I get blocked and I shouldn't be, loaf, unacceptable. So it's all encompassing in the 4 to 6 seconds of bounce. And that goes from a receiver to a D tackle. That's a non-negotiable.
It's so interesting to hear. And this feels like a different Spencer Danielson headed into this year. I mean, this guy's not that he wasn't all business beforehand, but he seems like a man on a mission, very determined heading into this camp.
Well, he's taken some accountability himself for what happened last year, and he wants to make sure that everybody is in that same boat. And in the effort department, I think when you look at the tape of the Oregon game after it happens, they'll be judged on the effort in that game, because the score of that game might be 34-7 like it was against South Florida,
Sure.
but that will not mean a thing in the big picture of the season. If they can look at that game and say they put forth maximum effort and that's what happened, then it'll be a much better result than the South Florida game last year.
Yeah, and this is a game that Boise State, we've talked about, they don't necessarily have to win this game, but this will give us a very good representation of who this team is this year. You've got a solid returning QB with Maddox Matson. He's faced a lot of criticism, but he knows his offense inside and out. He's really grown with the program over the past 3 years. This is a chance to see if he can finally win that big game, or much more than that, compete with these bigger opponents.
Play well, because 2 years ago at Oregon, he was 17 of 40 in that game for less than 150 yards. He threw no interceptions, had one touchdown pass, but the pass percentage was was glaring in that game. So he's got to improve on that, and he's got to show that he has taken a major step in completion percentage this year. And if he can be 60% or better in the Oregon game, that'll be a step in the right direction, because this is going to be a really difficult game for him.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, you've covered this team for decades now. I mean, you've seen these games where Boise State has had to go down to SEC territory. They've had to play some Pac-12 schools. Back in the day, it felt like those were must-wins. Otherwise, your season's kind of over. In terms of a BCS playoff game, it's kind of over. You know, you could get maybe a good bowl game at the end of the year, but now that things have shifted a little bit, you don't have to win this game necessarily. What do you hope to see out of this team? What do you need to see if you're a Boise State fan to feel okay, like, you know what, there's a silver lining here. This is a team that, although in the group of 6, they can contend and perhaps win a college football playoff game?
Well, I think that's the narrative, is that they're not expected to win this game against Oregon, and they don't have to win this game against Oregon unless it's a 52-3 game.
Yeah.
Then that would hang with them. But if they're in the point spread area, and I hate to talk this way, but if they're in the point spread area, then they move on and they face Memphis, and that's where the real fun begins. I think out of this first game, I'd like to see that effort. I'd like to see no self-inflicted wounds like they had at South Florida with the penalties, and I would like to see the signs of the team making plays. Rashawn Jones making plays, Maddox Matson making plays, and Dylan Riley and Sire Gaines having some success. They don't have to be Ashton Genty 2 years ago, 192 yards, but if they could combine for the 150 area, that would be a positive.
And all those games that they lost, they scored first and had a 7-0 lead. Florida. So, yeah, interesting to see where the growth comes week 1, taking on Oregon. We'll be right back unpacking Game 2 against Memphis and a few other miscellaneous items on this Boise State roster. All the conversation seems to be about the number 2 team in the country right now in Oregon, and that's just going to be a doozy of a game. If Boise State could pull that off, I mean, you would have to argue that's a top upset of all time for this.
Yeah, I would think so, because Boise State and Oklahoma in the rankings were very close to each other in that first Fiesta Bowl, and some of these other major upsets, the one of Virginia Tech, where Boise State was right, they were right there in the rankings with Virginia Tech on Labor Day of 2010. So there's a big gap between the two teams this year, and you got number 2 against number 28 if you count all the way down, in the others receiving votes category. But this year's Oregon team is better than 2 years ago. I mean, clearly.
Oh my gosh.
And they're better at every position on the field. So an upset of Oregon in this game would be the biggest win in school history in my mind.
They have the size, they have depth, they have financial backing from Nike.
Financial backing comes with the size and the depth and the speed and the
exactly.
It's the financial backing.
One pays for the other, and this is a monumental task to go into a very hostile environment. It is so. We talk about how hard it is to win on the blue. Oregon is I mean, it is monumental. If you can get a win, no matter what team you are, that's something, I mean, you're going to keep the game ball forever after that game.
Yeah, my favorite game I ever did on Channel 7 doing the color commentary was the Oregon game in 2008, because the whole scene, the 58,000 fans and the deafening roar, and then the less deafening roar as the game went on.
Got a little quiet.
As Boise State really took it to him in Kellen Moore's first road start of his career.
Yeah, and one of the things they did well in that game was tackling and moving the football well.
Oh, yeah.
Tackling last year was it was an eyesore, to say the least. Spencer
a good way
Danielson,
to put it.
Spencer Danielson knows that, and he addressed that after the fall scrimmage.
This time last year, I didn't feel I was confident that we'd be a good tackling team, right? As a coach, you have to do everything in your power to field the best product. We obviously were one of the worst tackling teams in the country last year, so obviously I did not do a good job. So we made changes. Do these changes work? How we tackle in scrimmages looks really good. When we go live, you guys come to our practices. I think we're tackling well. We'll see game one against Oregon if it's paid off. We're a veteran at some positions, but overall we're a younger team, right? Me and JD have talked, like a year from now, we're gonna have 17-ish starters back, right? I understand the landscape, but just in regards to where we're at, so we need to tackle. We need to break tackles. We need to see who can do that. We need more of those. We don't got a lot of players on our team that guy's had 1,000 reps of college football. We don't have that, and that's okay.
And it's such an interesting point that he makes there is, like, they do not have, despite Madsen and Sire Gaines and Dylan Riley, and of course you've got wide receiver Cam Bates coming back. He didn't see a lot of action, but when he did, he was pretty good. I mean, this is a young core outside, Ben Ford, another good example, but this is like, it's just a bizarre situation to be in for Boise State, to be kind of a youngish team trying to still build that identity.
I don't look at them quite like that. I look at them as a veteran team because in the grand scheme of things, in the group of six, there aren't teams that have that many players coming back. A lot of them are poached majorly by Power 4 teams. And Boise State, the strength of Spencer Danielson has been roster retention. So he only lost 2 starters off of last year's team to other teams in the transfer portal. So I think they're more veteran than they get credit for.
And perhaps he's giving them credit for.
Yeah. He's prepping people for what might happen, but I think this is a veteran team, and I think that's one of their strengths.
It seems to me, and I think we disagreed on this before the podcast, is I feel very strongly that this team might be better than last year. I mean, it just, being around the culture, it seems to feel different at fall camp. There's a sense of urgency that wasn't really there last year. It felt like last year was a year that Boise State got punched in the mouth for the first time, and I mean, that didn't really happen with Ashton Genty all that much. They didn't know how to respond to that. And it does feel like there's a little bit more of a kind of an edge to these guys. What do you make of that?
No, I agree. I think this team has the potential to be quite a bit better than last year's team because of the mentality and the culture in the locker room. I think it's much stronger than it was last year. So I think they can surpass the level of play from last year.
I think you need a season like last year to kind of stay grounded a little bit. I mean, if you're going undefeated all the time, I mean, I don't know, it's weird to say, but it does. These are seasons that help build character. And I think you learn a lot more about your team in hard times and through adversarial times than you do if you're just kind of winning all of the time. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there was some character building last year.
Yeah,
for sure.
Coming from an Idaho guy who watched his team go 3-9 his whole life. So yeah, it's just like, okay, we're well developed. The second game of the season is the one I think is the most important for this team, is Memphis. That is another battle between a two great group of 6 teams. Memphis had a little bit of a dip last year, but I mean, that's a team that's racking up 11 wins pretty regularly. That's a game Boise State can't lose, it seems.
No, they have to win that game, and it's a game that they should win. Memphis has a new coach. They have a lot of changes on their team. They're picked to finish 5th in the American. 5th. So on paper, Boise State should win this game. But perception, national perception, it's a game that they have to win. Right. Memphis is considered a group of 5 powerhouse, and Boise State needs that game. If they lose that game, then it changes the whole trajectory of the season.
Right, because I think a lot of pundits can excuse, like, as we've talked about, Oregon. Sure, Power 4 team, on the road, but being at home on the blue, 40th anniversary of the blue, right there, the beautiful helmet.
It would be major buzzkill.
Yeah, that would really take the wind out of the sails, I think, for those helmets.
Yes.
But yeah, that's a game they've just got to pull together. And I think we're yearning for that. I'm trying to remember the last very big visitor who came into Boise State and the Broncos came out on top. I mean, you think about UCF coming to town, Oklahoma State, that was a disappointing letdown.
Yeah.
I think this would be the first opportunity to get back into that win column.
Well, yeah, they haven't beaten a Power 4 team since 2019, but this is not a Power 4 team. This is a peer. This is a very capable peer. And it's a game that they must win because it's all about the group of 6 race for the CFP.
Yeah. Last year, we saw Maddox Madsen go down against Fresno State. Max Cutforth came in, didn't have the best game. I don't know many QBs who would in that situation, but he showed some flashes. And coming into fall camp, QB2 was a position battle, and it was just determined over the weekend that Max Cutforth will, in fact, back up Maddox once again. Here's Spencer Danielson on that decision.
It's going to be Max Cutforth. Yeah, Max Cutforth is really solidified himself as the number 2. And going in, we know, I mean, Max is doing some really good things. Cash is very, very talented, just needs to continue to be consistent, needs to operate the offense at a higher level to be able to be the backup quarterback. He's very talented. His future is really, really bright here, but it's going to be Maddox number 1 and Max number 2.
And we've seen some good stuff out of Cash Herrera, Jackson Taylor, a lot of buzz and excitement. They're just young guys at this point.
Yeah, consistent. That's a very important word with this team. And Max Cutforth has been consistent. And if you look at his trajectory in November last year, November 1st was the legendary game against Fresno, infamous
legendary,
game
for sure.
against Fresno State. He just wasn't ready for that. It's always next man up and be ready when your name is called. But man, he just was not ready for that moment. However, he improved as the month went on. At San Diego State, as I mentioned, he was kind of handicapped by the game plan and the rain. But the game plan was dependent upon the rain.
Right.
But then Colorado State, at home, he got his legs under him, and then he led the victory at Utah State, throwing for 341 yards and 2 touchdowns.
In inclement weather.
Yeah,
towards the end of that
exactly.
game.
Yeah, and so that was huge. So he has the experience. I think he had a great fall camp, but the experience is really important here. And he has it over, obviously, Cash Herrera.
Right.
And Jackson Taylor.
Well, this is such a funny, no one really ever bats an eye at the running back room at Boise State. That's always very well defined. Receivers, we typically see a lot of great talent come through there. This has been one where people sort of shudder to think about the QB position in years as of late. And I think when you look at the big picture, Maddox Madsen's final season as a Bronco, after he departs, the QB room is looking pretty bright with the talent you've got in there, especially with the experience that Cutforth has racked up. And then, of course, the natural talent we're seeing out of Jackson and Cash Herrera.
In the transfer portal era, you never know what will happen with the quarterback room. So, next spring there will be a battle between Cutforth and Herrera and Jackson Taylor, and somebody's going to finish third, and somebody might transfer, and so that's kind of the nature of the beast. But hopefully there will be a great battle between the 3, and somebody will emerge and really take the reins of this program.
I'm kind of curious how you view this season as someone who's covered this team for decades on decades. I mean, as we've said before, Boise State, we've only ever seen 5 losing seasons out of this program. Expectations have always been very high. Where are they for you headed into this year?
I just think the world is so different now. So I just want to see how they're going to react to the world the way it is at Oregon. It is so different than 2 years ago. Boise State should have beaten Oregon 2 years ago in Autzen Stadium. But they're not expected to come close. And there's a reason for that. The NIL world has changed so much just in the past 2 years. The gap has widened so much just in the past 2 years. But they're going to be under some pressure after that to carry the flag for the group of 5 into the CFP. Are they the team to do that? Can they handle that pressure? And if they get derailed somewhere along the way, Memphis or somebody else, Western Michigan, how will they react to that?
Western Michigan, it's going to be kind of a strange game up there in Kalamazoo. That should be a game Boise State can handle, but Maction after dark, it just gets a little weird up there.
And Western Michigan's picked to win the MAC. So they're going to be a good team. And if you don't think Boise State has a target on its chest for that game against the other Broncos, wow.
That's, you know what, it kind of feels like Oregon is this way too, where it doesn't matter who you are going to play, you are going to get that team's very best. They have created that target over the years, and they're going to get the best out of every single team this year, which is somewhat of a privilege and an honor if you are that program, but it is going to be, there's no cakewalks this year.
No. Boise State is the group of 5 version of that, or group of 6 version of that. And I think the thing about the new Pac-12, there are no bottom feeders in this league. You can look at any team, any of the other 7 teams that Boise State plays in this league, and you can make a case for that team to pull an upset. There are no San Jose States in the new Pac-12.
No, there's certainly not. All right, when we get back, we're going to talk more about this amazing helmet and the story, how it came to be. Tom was there. He remembers.
Yes, are you talking about the first game on the blue turf?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I remember it well, yeah.
We'll unpack it all coming up. Welcome back. Beautiful piece of hardware here on our sets. Boise State was generous enough to lend us their new lids.
They lended it?
They did lend it. We couldn't keep it. Yeah. These guys, from what it looks like, cost $2,500. So haven't gotten approved to swipe the card quite yet. But Tom, tell me about this, because you know this is a tribute to 40 years on the blue. You remember when that was first rolled out?
86, and you know the story. You know the story. It goes back to the AstroTurf that was laid in 1978 was worn out. It was time for a new carpet. Gene Blameyer, the athletic director, asked the company that created the turf, "Does it have to be green?" And they said, "Well, nobody's ever asked us that before. I don't suppose it has to be. Can it be blue?" Well, I suppose it could be blue. Gene got sign off from everybody, and Sports Illustrated did that article. And I think they referenced the Ducks in the rumor that the Ducks would crash on the blue turf, and that was unfounded, of course. But then there was the opening game against Humboldt State in 1986, September 13th. And there were 17,000 fans there. The stadium held a little over 20 at the time, and there were 17,000 fans for this. But Boise State was coming off a 7-4 season, which for them was, and they were, 4 games into the streak, Idaho's streak. And so, the 1985 season had kind of a sour ending. And so maybe there was some carryover for that, but the fans didn't react to that first game like you thought there were 17,000 there that night.
Yeah, they probably thought, and
maybe it was the opponent too, Humboldt State.
Yeah, they're like, this will be a snooze fest, But I was talking to Mark Johnson, legendary anchor for KTVB. He said, I'm not so sure that they thought this was going to be permanent. I think they thought it was just going to be to get some attention. I don't think anybody at the time foresaw how much of a national, I guess, icon this thing would become. And
it took a while, because we're talking 1986, and then they got into the 1990s, and there was some tough sledding there. Then you had Pokey Allen's big year in 1994, but then you had more tough sledding when he was away for cancer in 1996, and they had the 2-10 season, and then the rebuilding started to take place. Dirk Cutter took over the program in 1998. That's when the streak of winning seasons started. The first game ever on the blue turf to be shown on national TV was not a Boise State game. It was the first Humanitarian Bowl, Utah State and Cincinnati. That was the first time it was on national TV. And then the first time Boise State played on national TV from the blue was the 1999 Humanitarian Bowl against Louisville. But then things changed in the early 2000s, and ESPN became a staple of this program.
Yeah. It used to be us here at Channel 7 putting those games on TV for everybody, and then ESPN kind of caught wind, and they said, we'll swoop in here. This
and then people across the country, Boise State really started to win big. This was before the first Fiesta Bowl, but people knew that they played a fun brand of football. And so if they were scrolling across the dial, on a Saturday night and they came across blue turf, they knew what it was and they would stop and watch.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Do you think, and this is a fun, impossible question to ask, but without this blue turf, are they who they are today?
That's a good question. I think until the turn of the century, yeah. But since the turn of the century, the blue turf has become such an icon. No, I don't think they are. They are not the brand that they are today without the blue turf.
Certainly not. I don't know many football fields selling their grass or their turf for money every time it gets replaced. It seems like a very exclusively special thing for Boise State.
Yes, it is.
Well, it's got to be a fun season ahead. Tom, thanks so much for coming on again.
Yeah, a pleasure.
It's good. We'll see you Sunday
Anytime.
Sports Extra.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun to have you back.
I'm here. I'm here for the duration.